Hi, my name is Katz, or a fairy librarian, and today I will be sharing my September TBR. I will not be playing my TBR game today because there is enough going on in September already. I will be participating in 3 readathons, so making a TBR that would kind of work for all 3 with some other challenges that I'm doing that I'll still not neglecting those, and just books that I wanted to read was already hard enough. So I don't need the game to throw some extra chaos in the mix. Next month for October, I will be playing a game, but not my game. But stay tuned for that. You'll see what my plans are. And then the Game of the Goose TBR, TBR of the Goose, is that what I should call it, is going to be back in November. But the 3 readathons that I'm doing are the Magical Readathon, which is hosted by G from the channel Book Roast, the Rebellion Readathon, which is hosted by Mel from the channel Melanie Reads, and the LitQueens Readathon, which is hosted by Tori from channel Tori Talks on her Discord. So the Magical Readathon definitely has the most specific prompts that decide more what books are going to be on my TBR. The Rebellion Readathon, it's like a game board. You have to free a person from prison, and I'm gonna go for easy mode, which means that you roll 2 6-sided dice and you move along the board, and whatever you land on is the next book that you read. So it'll decide the order in which I'll read the books, but they're a lot more broader, so I think that doubling up there won't be a problem. And then the LitQueens Readathon is very open. Also, Italy requires 3 books to complete the readathon. There's 10 prompts. You choose 3 of them. You complete those prompts, but only books by female authors count. So that was not one that I was worried about, also because the prompts are broad enough that something would work. But so Magical Readathon will mostly decide what is coming on my TBR, and then the Rebellion Readathon is more going to decide the order in which I'm gonna read them. So for the Rebellion Readathon, I can't really make a TBR in advance because I don't know what squares I'm gonna land on, but there is 4 objectives that you need to complete no matter what, so I will mention those, but I'll first start with my Magical Readathon TBR. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the Magical Readathon if you've found me, because my channel is tiny, but just in case you're not, the premise is basically that you go to a magical school and you have to complete the different classes, get the required grades for your calling, and each class comes with a prompt that you have to read for. So my calling is the Lexomancer. I'm a linguistics student in real life. I'm a magical linguistics student in magical life. So for that, I need a Q in spells and incantation, a D in inscription, and a Q in restoration. So there's 3 grades. There is the lowest grade you can get is O, which is ordinary. Then there is Q, which is qualified, and D, which stands for distinguished. The lowest required grade, I should say, is O, then Q, then D. And you always have to read also the ones below the thing that you're getting. So for example, if you need a Q, then you have to read both the prompt for O and for Q. If you need a D, then you have to read the prompt for O, the prompt for Q, and the prompt for D. It's like you build them on top of each other, type of thing. But so, I'll first do my required classes, and then if I have time left, I might try and get a D in all my classes because I'm an overachiever, and I maybe take up some extra credit. Who knows? So, for spells and incantation, as I said, I need a Q. So I need to read the prompt for O and Q. The prompt for an O is to roll a D6 and die, and then whatever number I get, like that's like the page bracket. So if I get a 1, I need a book between 100 and 200 pages. If I get a 2, then it's between 200 and 300, that type of thing. I already rolled it. I got a 1, which on one hand is really nice because it's less pages to read, but also finding books that are between 100 and 200 pages is slightly more difficult for me because I'm primarily a fantasy reader, and fantasy books tend to be a little bit longer. But I think I'm going to go with A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. My ebook copy is 117 pages. This is the second book in the Monk and Robot series. It's a duology, so it will finish that series, which is always nice. It's my goal for the year to finish off the series. But so yeah, it's a cozy sci-fi. We follow sibling decks. I keep messing them up with Cleric Chi from the Same Hill Cycle, but it's sibling decks. And sibling decks is a tea monk, which means that they just serve tea to people, listen to people who need, someone to talk to, and they travel around. But at some point in the first book, they realize that they want more in life, like they want something different, and so they just go off into the wilderness, and they meet a robot called Mosscap, and wholesomeness happens. And so this is the second book, so I'm excited. It should be nice. Some other potential options I wrote down are Shady Hollow by Janu Black, which is a murder mystery where all the characters are anthropomorphized animals, like a detective is a fox. So it sounds cute. I have Upscaled by Joseph John Lee, which is a cozy fantasy in which the main character is organizing a party for her baby dragon, and things go from there, and it sounds great. I had an arc for it, and the second book is already out, so I really need to get to this book at some point, but it sounds fun. And then I also have as potential The Rest of the Gods by Joshua Walker, which I'm actually not sure what it's about. It's like one of those ebooks that has been sitting on my e-reader forever. I'm pretty sure, like, sometimes if you sign up to like an indie author's newsletter, you get a little like short story or a novella for free. I think this was one of those, but I'm not sure. This is how long it's been sitting on there, so I could also read that and just get it out there. So those are options, but I think I'm going to go for A Prayer for the Crown Shy. Then for a Q, I need a book published in 2025. And that actually works out great because I'm still working on Herkiet being the hardest reading challenge I'll ever do. And part of Herkiet is the new releases challenge, which is the one that I'm keeping an eye on the most, because in order to count books for that challenge, you have to read them within 60 days from their release, and you have to read a book that is released every month. So, I'm going to be reading an August release for this, which is The Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown, which is a historical fantasy. I believe it's by the same author as The Book of Doors, which I've heard fantastic things about. So I'm excited. It seems like one of those more mysterious secret society alchemy vibes type of books, which is all I needed to know. It looks fun. I haven't really heard anyone talk about this book specifically, but I saw it at the bookstore and I was like, I'll read that one, thank you. It came out on the 12th of August 2025. So that's the book I'll be reading for that. Then inscription, I need a D, so I have to read all 3 prompts. So for an O, I need a book where like you have to count the letters in the title, and that number has to be a prime number. So the book I chose is a reread author, because I've already had another book by Becky Chambers, but for this I'll be reading The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, which is the first book in the Wayfarers series. The title is 29 letters long. And so yeah, I've been meaning to read the series for ages. It is on my priority series for the year, but I haven't started it. I probably won't be able to finish it more before the end of the year, but I'm gonna try to start it. I've heard it's very like found family vibes for fans of the TV show Firefly, which I freaking love. So yeah, this is a 5-star prediction. I'm so excited. I think I'm gonna love this. So yeah. Then for a Q, I need a book with a vertical spine title. So hang on. So like you have on a spine, you have like, you know, the title. This one, if you put it like this, you can, you know, like it's horizontal, you know, like if you keep the book horizontal, then like the letters are the right way, but like you need a book that's like where they like go down like that, if that makes sense. Which I don't know what I'm gonna read for that, because I don't own a ton of books and I can't find any that like, well, the only ones I can find 2, which are like nonfiction books that are over 600 pages long, and I don't know if I want to commit to that in a month where I have to read so many things. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna go to the library, have a little browse, see what books I can find that would work for this, and then pick one of those. And then we'll see what we end up doing for this. But this was the hardest prompt for me, definitely, because this is also not something that you can just like look up and find very easily. Like, you know, pictures of books, like they include the front cover, they maybe include the back. If there's sprayed edges, they will include the sprayed edges, but not the spine. So we'll see what I end up picking for that. And then for a D, I need a book with an animal on the cover, and for that I'm gonna go with Son of Blood and Ruin by Marieli Lares, which is a Mexican-inspired fantasy. I am always going to read a book that is a Latin American-inspired fantasy, because I think that is a type of inspiration that we don't get a lot of, and I want more of. Like European inspired historically, we have a lot. Asian inspired, you know, like definitely like East Asian inspired especially, there's plenty of those as well. And then like there is like sort of a tier below that of like, it's not like every other book at the bookstore is that, but there is you know, you can name a couple things, you know, like right away, like African inspired falls under that, Middle Eastern inspired, South Asian, which like for those, like I won't necessarily read everything, but there's definitely like an area where if a European inspired fantasy and a Middle Eastern inspired fantasy had the exact same synopsis, I'm a lot more likely to pick up the Middle Eastern one than the European one. And then there's like a couple of parts of the world that are just so hard to find that as soon as I hear they're inspired by it, that's all I need to know. Just give it to me. Which Latin American is one of them. Like Caribbean would be in there too. Like I don't know what the official name is, but like, you know, like the islands, they're like between India and Australia, like, you know what it's like, Indonesia, Polynesia. I'll read that, or like other Pacific island, you know. So I saw Latin American inspired and I was like, yes, thank you very much. Also, this works great because September/October is Hispanic Heritage Month, so this works great. Also for her kid, because there is a challenge for, you know, the Heritage Months where you read one for each of them. You don't necessarily have to read them within the month, but I'm gonna try to do that. So that'll have that completed as well, which is very, very nice. So yeah, that's the book I'm gonna be reading. I'm so excited for this. I hope it's good. I really do. And then restoration. For restoration, I need a Q. So I have to read prompt for O and prompt for Q. So the prompt for O is a book with one POV. And for that, I think I'm gonna go with Punching the Air by Ibi Zoboi and Yusuf Salam, which is a YA contemporary about a Black teenager who ends up being incarcerated. And so it deals with like systemic racism and like the justice system, the prison system. It's a novel in verse, which is interesting. I've been meaning to read it for a very long time, and just it combined one a Hercat prompt and then a Rebellion Readathon prompt perfectly. So it was like, I'm gonna go with this one for Hercat. The one is the Avatar challenge, where we have like the 4 elements and you have to read one book for each of the elements, and it can either be in the title or on the cover. And so, you know, this works for air because I'm gonna do all of them in the title. So yeah, excited for this. I'll get to the Rebellion prompt when we get there. And then for Q, the random country generator is back. If you were there for the spring equinox, it was a prompt where you had to go to a random country generator and generate a country and then read a book from that country. Like you could generate up to 5 times. There are like some countries that are really hard. But I generated once and I got Morocco. So I just went with that. And I'm gonna be reading a memoir, and that is Stolen Lives, 20 Years in a Desert Jail by Malika Ufkir. This is a memoir by a family member of the leader of the country, and there was a coup and rebellion, and you know, she ended up in this desert jail for 20 years and, you know, not treated very well, you know, and this is her memoir about that time. So I reckon it will be a very hard read, but an interesting one, I hope. So those are my required reads for the Magical Readathon. As I already said, I am an overachiever. So I try to go for a D in all of my subjects. So for the D in Spells and Incantation, I need a book with an illustrated cover. And for that, I'm going to be reading Unseelie by Evelyn Houseman, which is the first book in the Unseelie duology, which is a YA duology with an autistic main character. It's a quest story. It is what's my favorite book of 2023, so it's a reread for me because the sequel is coming out at the end of September, and so I'm gonna reread this in preparation, and I'm so excited because I freaking love this book. I've been waiting for the sequel for ages because it kept being pushed back, but now it's finally gonna be the time, and I'm so excited. So this will be my book for an illustrated cover. For my D in Restoration, I needed to give an author a second chance. So an author that I've read something by, I didn't love it, but I'm willing to give them a second chance. So for this, I'm not entirely sure of two options. Either I read The Vipers by Katie Hayes. I've read The Cloisters by her and did not like it. I felt it was very aesthetic over substance. And so, yeah, I only gave it 2 stars, but that was her debut, so maybe this will be better, I hope. So we'll see. My other option is Wendy Meadows. I have Raspberry Truffle Murder by her. I've read The Snowman Killer, which is the first book in the Alaska Cozy Mystery series. The problem with it is not cozy, and it is not a mystery. It is set in Alaska, so it's one out of 3. But that's still a fail. It really bothered me that as well, that like it was impossible to solve, because you only learned about a specific person at the actual reveal who they did. And I don't mean like you learned that a person was connected to a different person or they have what, like you learned that this person existed the moment it was revealed that they were the killer. Like the person who did it wasn't mentioned in the entire book until the point where it was revealed that they were the murderer. Which I thought, like, what is the point then of the entire book up until then? I did not like it. But let's just hope that was just a dud. And let's try a different series by her. It was I got the Raspberry Truffle Murder, like the ebook at the same time I got The Snowman Killer, because they were free. So I was like, let's just download them and, you know, see if I like it. I have never heard of this author before, but like we'll see if I like her books. And then, yeah, this one is still unread on my e-reader, so might as well. And then for extra credit, I thought, you know, in lore, they are like learning, studying, the material is about ancient tongues. And I thought that'd be kind of relevant for Lexomancer, like magical linguistics essentially, like ancient tongues. Seems in line. So how about I take up lore for some extra credit? So if I want an O, I just need a translated book, which is so easy for me. Like I have a lot of those as options, because, you know, if you translate a book from, like if there's an English book and you read it in Dutch, which is my native language, that also counts as translated. So there's a lot. I have some books that aren't originally written in English that I could read too. But I just put Empire of Storms here, which is the 5th book in the Thread of Glass series, because I really want to continue that series and it didn't really fit anywhere else. So put it here. I'm reading the series in Dutch, so that's translated, but I have other options too. So yeah. And then for a Q, I need a book with a letter or note in the title or featured, no, on the cover or featured in the book. And this one was a lot harder than I thought it would be. But I have 2 options for it. The first one is Secret Rose by Kirsty Ferry, which is the first book in, I forgot what the series is called. It's like a romance, there's some mystery too. The English cover doesn't have a letter on it, but I'll be reading this in Dutch, and the Dutch cover looks like this. And in the like border thing, there's some letters. They're not full, they're like parts of letters, but like enough to see that they are. So I think it works. My other option is The Appeal by Janice Hallett, which is like a mixed media book. It's entirely told in like emails and text messages and stuff. So like I don't know if like an email is stretching it. Let me know what you think. So one of those could work for this. Like I do want to read both of them, but I don't want to read them right now. Basically, like I'm not most excited to read them right now, if that makes sense. So if it weren't for this prompt, they would not be on the TBR. The other ones that I've mentioned so far, probably I would try to make them work somehow. Or like, now that they're on here, I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to read that. But this one, I'm like, I could have done without this. And it is extra credit, so I don't have to read it. So I just put it in here for completion's sake. And then for a D, I would need 2 or more M's in the title. And for that, I went with Immortal Consequences by Ivy Marie. There's a chance, though, that I will read this in July. Like I will have read no, not in July, in August. I will have read this in August. So I can't, I mean, I could read it twice, but I'm not gonna like read a book to reread it straight away. Unless it's really good, but like that's not, whatever. But this is a romantasy. It's dark academia. We have a boarding school set in purgatory, and there's trials, and it sounds amazing. It came out in July, so it's my July release for Hook Yet. So yeah, I am excited for this. But as I already said, I'm gonna try to still fit it in July. There's a chance I won't be able to, so that's why it's here. But yeah, those were the options for the Magical Readathon. Let's talk about the Rebellion Readathon. As I already said, I don't know what the prompts are going to be because it's the board that you roll as you go. It is like a go at your own pace. It's not competitive or anything. So what I think I'm going to do, because there's also not like a specific time frame in which you're like supposed to finish it, you can take as long as you need. I think I'm going to start this one on like the 10th. It just works a lot better with how my month will go, because I will be traveling at the beginning of the month. So I'll start this when I get back. But there was 4 objectives that we all need to fulfill. And so yeah, let's look at those. So the first one is to gather our crew, and that is to read a book with multiple perspectives. I have quite a few that would probably work. But the thing I put here is Empire of Storms. But I could probably also do Long Way to a Smaller Planet. I'm pretty sure it's multi-POV. Then there's others that I'm not sure whether they are or are not. But I assume that at least like one of the other ones that I have here will be. So I'm gonna go with one of those. Then for the second objectives, we need to gather information. So we have to go on some sort of social media, scroll through, and the first book that we have on our TBR that we haven't read yet, that we want to read it, that we're interested in, we have to read that. I will do this when I actually land on the square, so I can give you a book for that yet. I'll just scroll through Fable, like my For You, like my feed, and see what we end up with, so I can give you a book for that. Then we need to actually do the thing, come into action. So we need an action word in the title, something that you actually do, and that's a thing that I said that punching the air would work great, because punching is an action. So that is what I'm going to read for that. And then finally, the final objective is to, once we actually have freed this person, to get out of there as quickly as possible. So we need to read a book, like a fast-paced book. And for that, I think I'm going to go with We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver, which I've been meaning to read for quite a while. It's quite charm blendy. It's like a horror thriller thing. It sounds interesting. And Judy from the channel Books, Coffee, and Cookies. I don't know what, it's those three components. I don't know what order they're in. But she started, well, is going to start. We Used to Live Here is going to be like the first one to do like chapter deep dives on her channel. So where like every week, every other week, I'm not sure what the schedule is going to be, she'll post like a, video on a chapter or a few chapters, depending on how long the chapters are, of a certain book, where she like goes into depth, analyzes, looks up, whatever. And so, as I said, she is going to be doing We Used to Live Here. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to follow along with her, or if I'm just going to read the book and then watch her videos, because it is a reread for her, and I don't know if this is one of those books where like once you know the ending, like the whole, like you see the whole thing in a new light. And so if it is that, like, I don't want that experience to like influence my first read through, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I think it's a very interesting way to like read a story. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm gonna do. Like, I definitely gonna have to wait until I get back from vacation before I'm gonna start it, because I'm gonna read it physically, and when I'm traveling, it's ebooks only for me. And then, once I get back, probably someone who's got it from the library who like holds on to it way too long, even though it was like due 3 weeks ago and I had a hold, so he can't renew it, but it's still not there. I'm totally not bitter after too many experiences like that. So I have time to think about that. But yeah, that is the Rebellion Readathon. Then for the LitQueens Themeathon, as I already said, I'm going to be doubling up on things. So I could use Prayer for the Crown Shy for continuing a series. I can do Unseelie for a YA or middle grade book. I can do Sin of Blood and Ruin for a non-Western setting. I could do Stolen Lives for a memoir. So, yeah. I have options for doubling up there. So, that is a TBR. I hope you enjoyed. I feel like it's a little bit chaotic because, like I was talking about with readathons, like, you know, reading the same book for multiple things. I don't know. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you've read one of these books, what you thought of it, and let me know what you're excited to read in the month of September. And I will talk to you in another video. Bye.